Alright there, geezers, Jules here from FGS, home of the Future Game Show. And do you know what I absolutely love the most about gaming? Taking some absolute nobody on a rags to raging hard-ons tale of adventuring and daring do that eventually ends up with them booting evil right in the snout and then posting mean online comments about them to really stick it home. Doesn't even wash their scales, hashtag big evil smells. Send. And in order to become this keyboard warrior of renown and legend, you'll need to upgrade your character with weapons, skills, and abilities, but sometimes these powers go beyond just being useful and enter the realms of being offensively overpowered. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is FGS, and we're going to talk about video game upgrades that turned you into a god! And you know the drill by now. This is the Deep Cut with Jules Gill, baby. So that means there's going to be games you haven't heard of, thought about in a while, or just need to know more about. And you know what? Let's kick things off by taking a little snippy, snappy, snap picture at the Fatal Frame series. Ooh, chills. Because we're going to talk about the Crush Lens from Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. Now, when it comes to survival horror games, the concept of being a god is often as far away from the experience as you can possibly get. Sure, you may end up weeping in a corner and praying to whatever deity is passing by to help you out, but actually being an overpowered god character, well, it's a rarity indeed. And speaking of rarity, let's turn our attention to the creepy deep cut corner that holds Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly, a game that is so sublime, a master of its craft, and in fact it's quite baffling that not more people talk about it. Even a snapshot of this game showcases that it's got all the credentials for an all-timer horror experience. Unsettling locations, wonderfully tense gameplay, and scares out the ass thanks to you doing more damage to enemies the closer they are to you, meaning that you have to put yourself in the line of fire in order to exorcise these ghosts with your camera. Except what's this? It seems that there's a new photo to develop right here. I tell you what, Mark, let's just dim the lights a minute, turn it into the dark room, and let's actually just watch this. And so, what have we got here? Oh, that's right. It's a legend, which is what you will become once you get access to the Crush Lens. Now, in order to get this, you're going to have to go through the game and beat it on hard mode. And it's most definitely worth it because the Crush Lens pretty much one-shots every single ghost in the game and will hit bosses so hard that they'll be asking you for a minute while they catch their breath before you then finish them off while reminding them that as ghosts, they don't need to breathe. Yeah, fair one actually. Now yes, this absolutely breaks the tension of the game, but you know what? When my dry cleaning bill is through the roof because of what doctors describe as fear-induced blood farts, I'm gonna lean heavy on this crush and savor each and every snap. Anyway, let's move on and talk about some hidden potentials from Valkyria Chronicles. Now, my friends, I want to talk about a game that I've just recently recompleted, this time on the Switch, and I just feel like I want to shout from the rooftops about it like it's 2008 all over again. Valkyria Chronicles. Ooh boy, what a game. And I know, what a shock, Mark, right? That Jules likes a strategy game that has an anime crossover. What a shocker. Yet here's what I love the most about this game. If you f**k up, and trust me, you will, your team can straight up die on the battlefield, and you will frequently experience enemy forces that have superior weapons and numbers, so yeah, you're gonna lose a fair few times. However, when it comes to abilities, this is where the true strength of Squad 17 really shines, as through leveling up troop classes and completing side stories, you can unlock hidden abilities called potentials that range from being useful additions like getting free ammo or damage boosts to being straight up game breakers, as is the case of Alicia, who becomes an actual god. Now, after progressing through the main story, you'll learn that this would-be Baker over here actually has the secret power to turn enemies into pretzels because she contains the blood of an ancient race of powerful warriors called the Valkyria. This isn't just a storyline mechanic. No, this is a gameplay mechanic because when you activate the Valkyrie ability and the mysterious body potential that she's got, well, you turn into a one-man army. Because the first, mysterious body potential, fully heals you, and the second, Valkyria potential, boosts your stats by 75%. So let's just slow things down a bit, just so we're all on the same page here. You are now supercharged, you're taking less damage, you're hitting with pixel-perfect accuracy, and you've just healed back up to full. Oh, how could this get any better? Well, I'll tell you, if you get the DLC for this game, you can do these extra special missions and they reward you with really powerful weapons. And one of them is a scout rifle that turns you into a tank killer. So you could then, theoretically, and by theoretically I mean what I do every single time I have the opportunity to do so, I just rush her behind the enemy tanks, turn around, shoot the engines with that, and then all the enemies around me just go, we just fired everything at her and did nothing. We did nothing. And then I go, oh boys, the party's just begun. That was a weird laugh. In one fell swoop, this one character may end up beating out an entire battalion as she destroys tanks and turns imp soldiers into red mist, and you will truly experience the power of a Valkyria. And speaking of sounding good, let's talk about BPM, bullets per minute, and the best defense. Okay, my friends, it is time to talk about a game in which you can bust a cap and bust a move at the very same time as we talk about bullets per minute, or BPM, a rhythm action shooter game where you can only trigger your shots and abilities if you hit on the beat. It is delicious. It also possesses one of the best vendors in all of video games in the form of Huggins right here, and you know what? He's just so lovely. We're just going to rest here for a moment. We're just going to take about 5 seconds out of the video just to appreciate him. I wasn't kidding. What a lovely fella. But you know what, there's other emotional assistance in this game, and it comes in the form of the numerous random weapons, items, abilities, and spells that you can find along your adventure. And as you might expect, some of these are, well, potently stanky. Take, for example, the Helm of Precision that deals bonus crit damage, low-key shield which slows down enemy projectiles making them easier to dodge, or the Space Walker that allows you to keep jumping around in midair and away from your foes forever. Yet my favourite of all of these is the Best Defense, which is an item that means that you have unlimited ammo. Now, that alone is pretty good, but when you combine it with something like, I don't know, say the chain gun, you end up in a rhythm action game in which you should, in theory, be triggering all your abilities on the beat, being completely broken by the fact that you just have to hit it once and hold down the button until everything else in the room is more lead than flesh. It is a wonderful experience, and it will make you feel so ridiculously overpowered. Enjoy. Cool, blimey, I tell you what, the soundtrack to BPM really does slap, but you know what? I should be slapping you all for not subscribing to the FGS YouTube channel. I'm not actually a physically violent person, I never actually do that, but please consider supporting the FGS YouTube channel, because not only will you be able to stay up to date with all of the deep cut lists that I put out every week, baby, that was the wrong sentence structure, but you gathered the intention there, but you'll also be supporting my lovely colleagues as well, as we endeavour to put out daily gaming content for you lovely people. So please consider subscribing. Go on, do it. Just now. I won't tell anyone. I promise. Do it now. Anyway, let's move on to talk about the shield spell from the original Fable. Oh, what a glorious time we had when the original Fable first hit the video game market, as not only was this a charmingly British tale filled with wonky toothed bumpkins and line delivery so goovnery that you could smell the pork pies on their breath, but it was also lovingly crafted, and more importantly, was a memorable adventure game set in a sea full of mush. It was also probably the first point in time that many people moved Peter Molyneux into a very special category of friends, you know, people that you would go for a pint with but never ever under any circumstance ever trust. And he's been there for oh god, what's the time? Well, 2024, so still counting. Yeah, he's been there for a long time for me. Oh, don't worry though, he doesn't care what I think, because the man has an impervious shield built up around him that also acts like an echo chamber of all of his new gaming ideas. Kinda like the shield spell from Fable 1. God, what a terrible segue that was. But you know what? I'll roll with it, my friend, because you know what? This shield spell, this one spell right here, well, it had the ability to turn you into a gaming good. Because the shield spell is, without a doubt, the most powerful upgrade that you can get, and only gets better the more cash and time you sink into it. And why is this? Well, because it deflects all physical damage in totality at the cost of your mana. Not only is being impervious a big bonus, but there's a second boon in the form of your combo multiplier not being interrupted, because it only does so when you take damage, meaning that you get huge EXP boosts, which means that you level up even quicker. It is the gift that keeps on giving without taking any damage. So yeah, you know what? Cheers, Pete. This one's for you. Just please rein it in a little. For the best of everyone. Anyway, let's get a stomp on and move over to the Wizards and Warriors video game and talk about the Boots of Force. Now, when you set out on your adventuring journey, it's probably a good idea to have like a checklist of all of the items and accessories that you'd potentially need on your long and arduous journey. Okay, so I've got my map, I've got my torch, I've got my rations, my favourite flavour, trout and cheese whiz. What a British delicacy right there. I've got my favourite leather jerkin all cleaned and pressed, but I feel like I'm forgetting something. What could it possibly be? What could it possibly be? Oh yes, it's my pinky ring that allows me to shoot lasers out of my eyes, breathe underwater and fly. God, that would have been silly if I'd forgotten that. Anyway, best be off. And I'll tell you this for none, I bet that Kouros from the Wizards and Warriors video game wishes he'd packed the boots of force from the start of his adventure, because boy howdy do these things turn you into a dungeon delving deity. For you see, the boots of force do insane amounts of damage, allowing you to stomp the ever-loving out of enemies and even do significant damage against bosses. However, what's truly amazing about this upgrade is that it basically breaks the flow of gameplay entirely by letting you kick locks off of chests that you don't even have the required key for. That's right, instead of delving deeper into the dungeon, like how the game is meant to be played, you can just say, well, nuts to this, I'm just going to kick the out of this box until it opens. It's amazing that this one upgrade basically lets you do what every gamer since the start of time has probably thought to themselves, like, why am I going so far for a key? Why couldn't I just try and bust the lock off of this very old and mouldy chest? It's brilliant, it's fantastic, it's so painfully simple. I love it so much. Plus it holds the amazing mind cannon situation that if you ever came across a mimic, you could turn it into a slipper by slipping your boot into it. Anyway, let's move on and talk about the Omega mods from Ratchet & Clank Gladiator. Now, 2005 was a pretty weird time for some of gaming's biggest platformer franchises. As for the Ratchet & Clank series and Jak and Daxter franchise, we had a significant departure from what made both famous, as both squirted out some really weird spin-off titles. For Jak and Daxter, we got drunk behind the wheel of a motorized combat title, and for Ratchet & Clank, we got Gladiator, or Deadlocked if you were in the US. It's really weird actually, I don't know why we had the name change over here in the UK. It's not exactly like it was a naughty or dirty name. It wasn't exactly like it was called Ratchet & Clank Fisto's Funhouse or Return of the Fanny. Anyway, back on topic, and despite this title not exactly setting the world on fire, it was a brilliant slice of arcadey shooting action, and one that you could make a damn sight easier should you wish to save up for the Omega mods. Now, these mods add in status effects or abilities to your weapons that were downright broken if comboed with the final upgrade tier of the item themselves, and acting like a shining beacon of broken was the mini turret launcher, which when fully upgraded would drop small weapon platforms that fired super-powered lasers. Now, this alone would be enough to turn the mid to late game experiences of this title into an absolute cakewalk, but when you added in the Freeze Omega mod on top of this, well, what it did was it slowed enemies to a crawl and then froze them in place, and then would do significant damage with the lasers anyway, meaning that you could just chuck out about 5 of these, stand back and just go, yeah, fair enough, my job is done. Gladiator, more like Maximus Relaxus over here. And let's close out the show by talking about Blue Stinger and the homing ray gun and the sumo shirt. A little Brucey bonus for you there. And so we close on Blue Stinger, which may well be my favourite underrated survival horror game that's not from the Fatal Frame series, as this title, well, it's got it all. Gross enemies made even more horrible by animation befitting the Donkey Kong TV show, hilariously bad voice acting, and all the wonky camera controls you can eat. Delicious. Now, while this sounds like a list of terrible features for a video game to have, and trust me, it normally is, there's just this unrelenting charm that Blue Stinger has that you can't help but fall in love with it. And you know what? It just knows that it's silly. It delves very hard into the silly for both of the playable characters, especially when it comes to the unlockable weapons, and in one character's case, t-shirts. Now, for our main bushy-eyebrowed hero Elliot, he gains access to the more potent of the two silly upgrades in the form of a homing ray gun, a weapon that does exactly what it says on the tin and launches a trio of homing lasers at enemies, turning them into pieces of pepperami. And weirdly enough, kinda looks like the same sort of tech that powers Heather's sexy beam from Silent Hill 3. Coincidence? Or is this a pseudo-crossover? It's a coincidence. Yeah, it's a coincidence. Anyway, wielding this weapon will surely put a sting in your tail and a smile on your face as you melt enemies left and right. But what about the other character, Dog? Well, I don't know if you've done this before, guys, but if you take the word dog, D-O-G, and you flip it back to front, I mean, oh my God, what a revelation! Well, that's what he turns into, by the way. But only weirdly when you equip him with a sumo t-shirt. Now, Dog, unlike Elliot, gains his extra powers from wearing different t-shirts, much like in the same way that tuxedo t-shirt that we all wore when we were kids made us look like the smartest emo at the funeral for a friend gig. Yet here, instead of perennial sadness, Dog unlocks actually useful abilities, such as being able to sumo slap the cheeks right off any enemy he comes across. Upon donning the sumo shirt, you can adopt a stance that would have even E. Honda saying, "Dude, nice one," and begins to palm slap the air in front of you. Now, while the game lists these attacks as being rather weak, what it fails to mention is that when you are hitting an enemy with it, you are stun locking them in an infinite combo. As long as you don't finish the combo chain, you can keep going, and it is so much fun to palm slap and pie off every enemy that you come across. These monsters, these horribly mutated creatures, they shamble out. They look at you and they say, "All right, mate, I'm having your lunch money." And you just go, "No, not today, not today, not today, haha, not today, not today, not today." You. There's nothing that quite breaks the tension of this game more, and at the same time makes you feel like a master of martial arts quite like this. It is always hilarious to watch, and it is truly overpowered in the right hands. Funny. And there we go, my friends. Those were video game upgrades that made you into a god. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And if you want to chat to me on the social medias, you can do so over here, and you can follow my lovely editor Mark over here as well on his socials. But before I go, my friend, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today about video game upgrades that made you feel like a god, you have the power to do that as well, and that is just by being kind to yourself, reminding yourself that you are a big ledge and you deserve love, happiness, and success, all right? Do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, all right? Always go out there and smash your life goals today, because I believe in you and you need to believe in yourself as well. Get out there. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.